A new report has suggested that universities with a zero-tolerance approach to drugs are doing more harm than good. This is because it makes students fearful that if they come forward for help, then they will be punished.
Yes, well, the Higher Education Policy Institute suggests a more tolerant, health-focused approach to drug taking on campus would help combat the problem more effectively. Well, we're joined this morning by Jonathan Nadler, who's CEO and Managing Director at LYPHE Group, the UK's #1 medical cannabis group. Thank you for joining us this morning. So what's your view on this? Because, you know, I'm not sure as a parent of, if I was a parent of a university-age student, I would necessarily want my child's university to have a relaxed approach to drug taking.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I think this report's phenomenal, and it's the start of something great, hopefully. The point out, the crux of it is zero tolerance just hasn't worked. I mean, we're living with a misuse of drugs Act, which is 50 years old, and we've been criminalising the use of illicit drug taking for all of that time and beyond, I believe. And it hasn't worked. We're seeing an increase in the number of drug-related deaths in this country, and lots of those, unfortunately, are students at higher education institutes. So zero tolerance hasn't worked. This report shows that there are better approaches to reduce harm, to educate, to ensure that there isn't diversion, and to really make sure that we protect our population rather than criminalising them.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, you can understand, I suppose, in a way, why universities kind of do have a zero-tolerance approach. I think, as Mercy's rightly said there, you know, maybe many parents would feel more comfortable sending their child away from home, potentially for the first time, to a university that has got a zero-tolerance approach to it. It's also a way of universities to make quite a lot of money as well, because they fine people, don't they, if there's any drug issues, I suppose. So you don't think that by having a more relaxed approach whatsoever to drugs that actually people might stop dying of overdoses and things like that? You think that people would just be able to, I don't know, be responsible with it?
Well, as I say, it hasn't worked. We're seeing more drug deaths than ever before. So the law that's supposed to protect us is not doing what it's supposed to do. I understand your point. As a parent, you don't want your child going to university and being involved with things like illicit drugs. But if they are taken, then why should they not be taken in a more controlled manner? So it isn't about criminalising, it's about understanding why they're being consumed. And I think that if you look at some of the root causes of drug taking, you will find that it is to deal and cope with certain things in life, with mental health issues, with trauma, with pain, and so on. We know from our organisation, which has a focus on medical cannabis, that 1.4 million people in the UK are taking cannabis, an illicit drug, according to that law, for medical reason. Why should they be criminalised?
No, indeed. Do you think it is time for maybe a more, how would you say it? Well, I suppose a less outdated approach to drug taking, I suppose you could say. If there are overwhelming numbers of people who are indeed using drugs now, if indeed it is pretty commonplace in society, which I think we can all agree it is a lot of the time now, is it time that we actually just had that kind of different approach to it? You know, the outright banning, as it were, you know, maybe could be a bit outdated.
Exactly right. And as I said, the Misuse of Drugs Act, 50 years old, people have been campaigning for many years to try and get it changed. It hasn't worked, as I say. I mean, there's been well over 250,000 drug-related arrests in 2020-21. It's a real burden on our Metropolitan Police Force and police forces all over the country. And lots of it could be stopped by having a more tolerant approach, where we educate, where we look at the root causes, where we understand that there are probably mental health issues underneath some of the taking of illicit drugs, to